ESPN's Rivalry Week, presented by Wendy's. From Louisville, Kentucky, it's an ACC showdown between the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and the Cardinals of Louisville. How about a little bracketology from Joe Lunardi? As of today, Georgia Tech would be on the outside looking in, but Louisville would be in the field of 68 as an 8 seed. But more importantly, they've got to start piling up some wins and go in the other direction. The sooner the better for the Cards. And welcome everybody. Doug Sherman along with Corey Alexander. And the Cardinals have lost 3 in a row and no time like the present, like tonight, to pick up that win.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach David Padgett has told us it's about their defense. They're going to need a better effort on the defensive end of the floor, where he doesn't feel they played very well in their last 4 games in order for them to get back on their winning track. And when you look at the numbers, you see the points per game over the last 3 games offensively are down, but they're allowing better shooting from their opponents. And 2 of those games here on their home court, and that's one of the things what Coach Padgett says has to change.
Yeah, each of the last 2 days in practice, that has been the focus for Coach Padgett, is to work on the defense. They allowed Syracuse to score 78 points in this building on Monday in a loss to the Orange, a Syracuse team that has been offensively challenged all year. And we are underway. The Yellow Jackets have the basketball first in their old gold uniforms, and the Cardinals in their home whites. And Louisville is without its lead scorer tonight. Dengadell was a game-time decision. They have decided not to have him in the starting lineup. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech goes as expected. Keep an eye on the freshman point guard Alvarado. And Lammers inside.
And also seeing Anas Mahmoud back into the starting lineup. Ray Spalding back into the starting lineup, so they've had a bit of rotation over their last few games. Spalding turning his ankle against Florida State, struggled a bit to play against Syracuse, but ended up having a very good game. So getting everybody back healthy is going to be an important part for Coach Padgett as the season rolls along.
Nice drive along the baseline. The assist to Snyder. Spalding with his first 2.
And one of the things that, David Padgett told us as well, we're going to see more zone from Louisville today and them switching up their defenses. And you're already seeing a byproduct of that with the 2 smaller guards, Darius Perry as well as Quentin Snyder in the backcourt, picking up 94 feet, putting a little bit of pressure on Georgia Tech in the full court.
Brandon Alston off the bounce right to the bucket, and that has been Louisville's problem defensively over the last couple of weeks.
And Brandon Alston hasn't done much of that this season, but got off to a great start. 11 first-half points against Boston College on Sunday, and he's picking up where he left off, and he did most of his damage attacking the basket, where he's normally more of a shooter from the perimeter.
And, Brandon Alston has been playing with a heavy heart the last 2 games for Georgia Tech because his father, Michael, passed away. Actually, the night before Georgia Tech played Syracuse. He didn't want his teammates to know until after that game. And he has been away from this Georgia Tech team the last couple of days. Funeral, and then returned to Atlanta yesterday and back here on the floor for the Yellow Jackets tonight.
Yeah, and a lot of courage from that young man, being able to come out and help his teammates out. I had an opportunity to speak to him a little bit before the game, and you can, of course, see by his expression he's definitely having a hard time dealing with it. But, basketball court also oftentimes can be a sanctuary, and he's been playing very well over their last few games.
And Michael Alston was only 59 years of age, who himself was a high-level athlete. And his father also got a law degree from the University of Virginia.
Well, both his parents actually met at the University of Virginia. And Brandon, a high academic young man, graduated from Lehigh in 3 years. So actually a grad transfer to Georgia Tech, but with 2 years of eligibility. So I know Josh Pastner happy to have him in the fold.
Yeah, much like Cameron Johnson at North Carolina, the Pittsburgh graduate with 2 years of eligibility with the Tar Heels.
Devin Hall at Virginia doing the same thing. So it's becoming a trend. Hey, but if you can get it done in the classroom, it gives you more opportunities on the court.
Georgia Tech's head coach is Josh Pastner, the 1997 graduate of the University of Arizona. Now 40-year-old, native of Houston, Texas.
And that was an interesting play there. You see Anas Mahmoud, the 7-foot, I guess we have to call him a center, although he is skilled, taking the ball to the basket and going past the 6-foot point guard, Jose Alvarado, for Georgia Tech. A little bit awkward once he gets to the rim, but yet still the ability to put the ball on the floor makes Mahmoud very difficult to guard, especially when he can catch the ball in the paint and finish over the 6'11" Ben Lammers with no problem.
Mahmoud, one of 3 tri-captains for Louisville this year. Snyder, Adele, and Mahmoud. Here is Josh Okogie, averaging 18 points per game. He's fouled on the drive. And David Padgett, the interim head coach at his alma mater, class of 2008, 32-year-old native of Reno, Nevada. And you see to his left, Trent Johnson, who he has known from the time he grew up in Reno. Of course, Coach Johnson used to be the head coach of the Nevada Wolfpack at that time. A.D. Gay, no. Okogie tried to crash. Snyder quickly back the other way. Nifty feed. And the easy layup by Darius Perry.
And you see Louisville getting out in transition, which, of course, they love to be able to get easy baskets and allow their defense to set up offensive opportunities. And they've done a great job of that. You can tell that focus defensively in practice over the last couple of days has paid off for Coach Padgett.
Well, Corey, we talked about the struggles for Louisville lately. Georgia Tech has been struggling a bit lately as well, as Okogie buries the 3. Georgia Tech has lost 5 of its last 6. The only win in that time was a home win over Syracuse 2 games ago.
But the one guy who has not been struggling is Josh Okogie, as he continues to have an excellent sophomore season for Georgia Tech, averaging close to 18 points per game, but his scoring and minutes played, everything are up during ACC play after missing games due to suspension and injury early in the season.
Alston guarded by Snyder. Feeds A.D. Gay on the block. Big size advantage over Perry, but he can't connect.
And A.D. Gay has been playing very well, especially in the post for Georgia Tech, but with the mismatch right there, unable to take advantage of it.
It seems like the light switch has perhaps gone on for A.D. Gay.
Yeah, it really has. When you look at his numbers, only scored 70 points in his first 2.5 seasons, but of course averaging of double figures over his last 10 games, I believe it is, for Georgia Tech, or close to double figures, 9.2. So he's a guy that's really picked up his production and given Josh Pastner more of a post presence. Ben Lammers has been allowed to kind of play on the perimeter more so, with A.D. Gay getting the job done in the paint.
A.D. Gay was on the floor a little early for shoot around this afternoon, getting a little extra stretching on his hips to get loosened up for the day. Snyder and Perry in the backcourt. Shot clock at 6, and a double dribble is called against the senior from right here in Louisville. Cards with a 1-point lead.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Wendy's Hamburgers, made with fresh, never frozen beef. And Heineken. Open your world. Enjoy responsibly.
You're watching the ACC on ESPN. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman here in the Ville. And Louisville offensively has gotten off to a good start, sharing the basketball. Quentin Snyder's been leading the way.
Yeah, 4 assists on all 4 field goals, and all those field goals coming in the paint for Louisville early in this game. And what that's allowed them to do is set up their pressure defensively. Darius Perry, Quentin Snyder doing a good job, and just almost an unforced turnover on that possession. But it starts with the fact that Louisville's defenders are so far out in passing lanes, it puts even more pressure on Georgia Tech offensively.
Well, Corey, Louisville was picked number 5 in the preseason ACC poll, and nationally a lot of folks thought they had a good chance to be a real national contender. Why do you think that's not been the case, at least so far this year?
Well, they're hearing a different voice. I mean, and the reality behind it is David Padgett compared to Rick Pitino, and that change had to take place so late in the season that this group is having to listen to a different voice. And regardless of the lines of communication between Padgett and Pitino, meaning, you know, he coached with Coach Pitino for years and played for Coach Pitino, but his style is going to be a bit different regardless. And these players have played for Coach Pitino, so it's going to make it takes a bit of a time change to be able to go out and get the job done on the court for allow the coach's thoughts and his ideas to manifest on the court.
Ray Spalding off to a quick start, missed the jump hook. Although really the roster remains essentially the same as what it was supposed to be coming into the year. Of course, you lost Donovan Jackson the terrific player off of last year's team, but the pieces certainly still seem to be in place for Louisville to get this thing turned around.
Because you do a good job of taking care of me on the air, I'm going to tell you that it was Donovan Mitchell. And
what did I say?
You said Jackson.
Donovan Mitchell. Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Donovan Mitchell, who was, if not for a redshirt, NBA year for Ben Simmons, would most likely be the NBA's Rookie of the Year this year. And Mitchell playing great basketball for the Utah Jazz. And the Cards are passionate about Donovan, so I didn't want you, having problems when you walked out of the Yum Center here this evening.
I appreciate that. And the folks in Salt Lake City wouldn't be too happy with me either, because, like you said, he's averaging over 19 per game, and he might yet win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he definitely has a chance. I think Ben Simmons probably is the front runner right now, but he had a bit of an advantage with living in the NBA and being part of the NBA a season ago.
Jordan Nwora, the freshman from Buffalo, with a rebound. Perry to Snyder. Turned down the shot. Instead, back to Perry for three. And a foul on the rebound against Todrick Jackson for Georgia Tech. Well, this is what happened to Dengadell Monday against Syracuse. Turned his left ankle on that play, and while he did play a little bit more that night, he has not practiced since, and he's in a walking boot again tonight and not available. But Coach Padgett told us that if this were a postseason game, he would be playing. This is just more precautionary. And there's Nwora for three.
And Jordan Nwora, a big-time shooter. And that's one of the areas where Louisville definitely needs to have some more help. In their wins, 16 wins, they have averaged over 8 3-point field goals made per game, but close to 5 in their losses. So that's an area of concern for them in times when they haven't played well.
Around and out on Lammers. Ryan McMahon's also come into the game, so Louisville has brought two of its better shooters off the bench now in McMahon and Nwora. Nwora from deep.
And you can see he's not shy, no question about that, and he shouldn't be. For the guy that shoots the basketball that well, he needs to make sure he finds looks to basically space out that defense and give Louisville's guards opportunities to penetrate in the paint.
Lammers was surrounded by white shirts. And that'll take us to our media timeout. Louisville up 4. The Smith Center will be hopping in about 44 minutes from now over on ESPN, one of the all-time storied rivalries in college basketball history. And on the bottom there, Corey, it's hard to believe that the last 100 meetings have been split in even. 50 wins for Duke, 50 wins for Carolina. And
we're trying to check. I believe it's Duke that actually has the 2-point differential ahead. So you can't get closer than that when you talk about a rivalry. And always a great one to be able to match. And the fact is, you and I were just in that area earlier this week, and it's 8 miles from each other. I mean, these players actually can hang out with each other at times, although I'm not sure they do a lot of that during the season.
Well, when you were at Virginia, who was your biggest rival?
Honestly, I would probably have to say North Carolina. During that stretch, Virginia, North Carolina is an old rivalry, and a lot of friends on both teams. And, so we hung out with each other off the court, but when we got on the court, I mean, it was real live wars. And they were really good during that stretch. The 93 team, of course, won the national championship, and then 95 was the Final Four team with Rasheed Wallace and Jerry Stackhouse and all those guys. So, but we had some battles. They always beat us at their place. We always beat them at our place.
Ryan McMahon for three.
And McMahon, again, another one of the players that David Padgett has to rely upon to give them perimeter shooting. And off to a good start, but McMahon has done a great job defensively. We talked about the wingspan of so many of these Louisville players as Williams shows off his wingspan on the chip in, but McMahon getting his hands on a number of basketballs, already 2 steals for him early in the game.
It's a 10-0 run for the Cardinals, who've opened up the 11-point lead. The redshirt sophomore out of Cardinal Moody High School in Sarasota, Ryan McMahon, getting it done defensively with a couple of steals and knocking down the three. Corey, since the calendar year flipped, McMahon is shooting 48% on his three-pointer. That's pretty good.
And being in the zone helps McMahon be successful. He struggled at times in the man-to-man, but you see why he's so important for Coach Padgett to have him on the court. So the zone has really helped him out. And now he continues to make plays, unable to connect with Spalding on the alley-oop there. But you can see he's being very aggressive on the offensive end of the floor.
Nice job by Lammers to recover and block up that lob. First foul on Williams. Saturday afternoon on ESPN, we'll have another Sonic blockbuster for you. It's a top 5 matchup in the Big Ten when number 3 Purdue takes on number 4 Michigan State. 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 Pacific on ESPN. This Saturday showcase game is presented by 5 Hour Energy.
Michigan State could possibly move to number 2 with Purdue and Villanova both losing. If Virginia is able to get a win on Saturday at home versus Virginia Tech, College game day will be in Charlottesville. Virginia could move to number 1, and if Michigan State could knock off Purdue at home, they could be in the number 2 spot in the polls next week. So, you know, it's going to be some changes in the top 10. Going to be interesting to see how that pans out moving forward.
And with Purdue having its 19-game winning streak snapped last night, do you think any less of the Boilermakers now?
I do not. I think that, you know, honestly, during conference play, you expect for everyone to lose, and it's probably better in the long run to have losses. It allows you to get the team's ear a little bit better, but I'm sure no one in Charlottesville wants to hear that right now as Virginia is 12-0 in the ACC.
Lammers bounce pass through the hands of Gay. Georgia Tech turns it over. Bounce pass by Evan Cole along the baseline. 5th turnover committed by Georgia Tech. There's a look at a wild Wednesday, a continuation of what's been a wild season already.
It really has been. And, you know, I think that Auburn has to be one of the biggest surprises of the season, of course, playing without 2 of their top interior players. And yet, Bruce Pearl continuing to do the job as Jordan Noah continues to do the job from the perimeter. And David Padgett getting a huge contribution from his bench right now. McMahon and Noah, both those guys coming out shooting the ball extremely well, but also adding to the defensive pressure.
First foul on Quentin Snyder. Well, you know, when Rick Pitino was recruiting Jordan Nwora out of the Park School, he just loved the fact that he's 6'7" and has that kind of stroke on the jump shot.
Yeah, I had opportunity to coach Jordan Nwora as well as all of the Louisville freshmen this year at the Kentucky Derby Festival last year, and got a chance to see that from him. Of course, I saw Darius Perry continue to, you know, light people up. He had a big-time showdown with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander from Kentucky.
How about the defensive? Ryan McMahon already 3 steals and very nearly set up a Williams highlight.
And he's been all over the place. The deflections, you see another opportunity, and then the hustle to pick up the basketball. Perry with the right find, the Williams right there. Williams unable to finish it, but does get fouled, an opportunity to put points on the line at the free throw. But you see the activity from Louisville defensively, and I think the zone really has energized them against Georgia Tech, who in Georgia Tech struggles. They're last in the ACC shooting the 3. So this is one of the teams you want to be able to have success against your zone, with your zone against. But they've done a great job getting out, getting deflections, and has allowed them to play with a lot of energy and get out in transition.
Despite the 2 missed free throws by Malik Williams, it's been all Louisville when it comes to bench scoring. Todrick Jackson could certainly change that for the Yellow Jackets. The senior from Tifton, Georgia, with the basketball. Okogie got the shot blocker in the air, but Mahmoud recovered nicely.
That still counts as a shot block, correct?
I believe it does.
Okay. Mahmoud, of course, over 3 shots blocked a game. One of the tops in the country right now, and the tops in the ACC, along with Ben Lammers. So when you take the ball in the paint against Louisville, that's one of the things you have to be concerned about. They're second best in the country.
Skip pass finds McMahon, who drives to the lane. From the corner, Williams. Josh Okogie thought about it.
And that's a play right there where there's nothing wrong with A.D. Gay coming across, and that's a good look from Gay. But by Gay running to the block, he took away a driving lane from Josh Okogie right now, and that's an area where Josh Okogie needs to be able to be aggressive attacking the basket. He gets to the free throw line 7 times a game, which leads the ACC, and you don't want to take away his opportunities when he has the opportunity to attack the basket.
Williams tries again. This time he finds the range.
And you and I had a conversation with Coach Padgett regarding Malik Williams and his shooting. And I asked him, you know, because, again, I told you I had the opportunity to coach Malik, and he shot a bunch of threes. And I was shocked to see a guy that big who stayed behind the line so much. But he told us he's a very good three-point shooter. It's just that he's a freshman right now, and it's not always materializing in the games, but he's comfortable with him taking those shots.
Yeah, only 27% would make you think he shouldn't be shooting that much, but those who are in practice every day for Louisville say he makes them at a very high percentage. Just trying to translate it to the game.
Well, when you run into the shot blocker, oftentimes you'll lose. Josh Okogie going up against one of the ACC's best. And then Malik Williams stretching the lead to 16 for the Cards.
Adnan and Burke back in our college basketball studios. Pitt taking on Clemson. Check out Marquise Reed here. The sweet dish to Amir Sims. The bucket. Currently Clemson's up 21-12. 7:24 left in the first. And cannot wait. UNC and Duke. Each team has won 50 games over the last 100 meetings. Should be another classic coming up on ESPN. Back to Doug and Corey. Guys.
Adnan, thank you. Back here in Louisville, Kentucky, where Anas Mahmoud and the Louisville Cardinals, as of now, Joe Lunardi has them in a game against Texas A&M in an 8-9 game. But for Louisville to hold on to its spot there, Corey, they've got to get back into the win column and do it sooner than later.
Well, and their defense is allowing them to get off to a good start here and try to get back to their winning ways, especially on their home court. There's going to definitely be a tough stretch as they finish out ACC play. But I can tell you right now, Ryan McMahon has really come in and energized the Cards. His half-court shot off the glass won't count.
My goodness.
But definitely still entertaining.
He's the defensive player of the year so far tonight.
Wait a minute. Let's not say year. Let's just go with the game. Let's go with the first 17 minutes of this game. He'll be the defensive player of that. But he comes up with a huge block on Okogie, and then just for kicks and giggles, tosses up from half court off glass to the delight of the crowd here at the Yum Center.
3 steals and a blocked shot in 6 minutes off the bench for Ryan McMahon. Anas Mahmoud working on Lammers, and he traveled. Well, the defense for Louisville has been so much better here in the early going. Georgia Tech has not scored in about 8.5 minutes from the floor. 0 for their last 8, and make it 0 for the last 9 after the block shot.
And I believe the zone really has affected Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech, who is a zone team in itself, Josh Pastner definitely coaches the zone defense. But the zone from Louisville is different, always has been different. And you see where they go out and defend players well beyond the three-point line and take away passing lanes, but they often, during the shot clock, will switch from their zone into a man-to-man defense, confusing opposing teams as to actually what they're playing against.
And again, with the shot clock down, Lammer is going to have to go up and over Spalding. Long rebound, and of course it's McMahon who's got it. Darius Perry to the bucket. And it's Okogie who comes away with it, being ridden up the floor by Perry, who poked it out of bounds. I tell you, the last 2 days in practice have been much more intense for Louisville, and it seems to have translated to the game.
I'm sure it has, and that's what losing 3 in a row will do for you. But you see the freshman Darius Perry playing against his home state school, wanting to make sure he has a strong appearance against Georgia Tech here in his first start.
Lammers gets tied up by Williams, and the possession arrow will have us head back down the other way. And Darius Perry out of Powder Springs, Georgia, Wheeler High School, 6'2" freshman who has practiced with the starters the last couple of days in anticipation that Dengadell wouldn't be able to play tonight. There goes McMahon with a nice round of applause.
You mentioned Wheeler High School, one of the powerhouse high schools in Atlanta. Producing, of course, one Jaylen Brown, who is starring for the Boston Celtics right now and continues to have a very solid NBA career early.
Ooh, Ray Spalding into the front row.
And that's the problem when you play against Louisville. If it's not Mahmoud, who's blocking your shot. You've got to deal with Spalding. I mean, the wingspan, the length of this back line for Louisville is tremendous. But when they're playing with this type of energy on the defensive end of the floor, it makes them extremely difficult to beat.
Alvarado becomes just the third Yellow Jacket to score tonight. Okogie's got 6 of their 11. And Louisville second in the country in block shots per game, and they do it by committee. They've got a couple of highlight potential shot blockers as they combine for nearly 7 tonight. Second foul on VJ King, as we've got to tell you about an NBA Friday doubleheader to tip off your weekend. Blake Griffin going to go against his former team when the Pistons host the Clippers, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific. And then Jimmy Butler and the Timberwolves take on his former team, the Chicago Bulls. Both games are on ESPN and the ESPN app. And what a wild day we've had in the NBA at the trade deadline. Will we recognize anybody but LeBron the next time the Cavaliers play?
I believe we will, but there will definitely be some new faces and new places. We're talking about those matchups. You got Blake going back to play against, and we talked about the shot blockers play against DeAndre Jordan, who I think everyone felt would be traded today, but is going to remain with the Clippers. And it'll be interesting to see if Blake goes to the rim one time strong. Will DeAndre jump with him? You know, those two guys have been the source of a lot of highlights over the last few years, but we'll see if one is able to highlight the other.
Quentin Snyder back into the game at the point for Louisville. Comes up short on the runner. Okogie back to Todrick Jackson. Misses a couple of shots at the rim. And the Cardinals come away with it.
And a missed opportunity, but now you've got a 5-on-3 for Louisville. Snyder not recognizing it was 2 players back for Georgia Tech. And Snyder had the advantage, but didn't take advantage of it. That could have been an easy basket for Louisville in his possession.
Dwayne Sutton's come into the game for Louisville. Out there with Perry, Snyder, Wara, and Spalding, who comes up to set the ball screen. Rejected by Snyder. Tough shot. It's an air ball. Gay taps it. And the Yellow Jackets on the run. Jackson to Okogie. And another missed layup for Georgia Tech.
And these are shots that Georgia Tech will be kicking themselves over in this game. A.D. Gay with a huge block right there as he stares down Wara about coming in. Jordan Wara coming in with mean intentions on that one, but A.D. Gay thinking something completely different.
Had a nice chat with A.D. Gay before practice today. Young man from Senegal who moved to Birmingham, Alabama by himself as an 11th grader. Didn't know a lick of English, but he has played well lately for Georgia Tech.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Papa John's dual-layer pepperoni pizza. Large, just $10.
With Dallin Cuff, Coach Tom Crean, I'm Adnan Ver. Coming up in the Landover Halftime Report, Woj breaks down a wild day for the Cavaliers, the NBA trade deadline. Plus, we'll look ahead to a couple of fabulous freshmen in action. Coach, how about what we're seeing so far?
Well, if Louisville could finish a little bit better, they would be up 30 right now because Georgia Tech is just taking far too many shots that are challenged, and Louisville's not even have to work that hard at it.
This is ugly. In fact, Georgia Tech's down 11. They should be thankful right now.
Well, you never know what could happen. Doug and Corey, step on.
Corey Alexander needs to step in and run that
Yeah,
point.
he does. CA, get out there.
Coach, nobody else would touch the ball if I stepped in and run the point, especially the way it's going right now. But they're absolutely right. Georgia Tech shooting 5 for 23 from the field with 8 turnovers. And, you know, they're fortunate to only be down 13 now. But Louisville hasn't necessarily taken advantage of all the opportunities that they've been given. That's why I believe David Padgett called the timeout, because he knows that his team should be in a much better situation right now. They don't want to allow Georgia Tech to be able to hang around and try to find some rhythm later in this game and find themselves in a true contest.
As you mentioned, Georgia Tech only 5 of 23, and among those misses, multiple layup attempts. Okogie from way downtown.
And if not for Josh Okogie, where would Georgia Tech be right now? He has been the story for them. 9 points.
Well, they'd be losing 26-7.
Well, there you go with your quick math. That's that Syracuse education coming into play.
But he has been the only offense so far for the Yellow Jackets. Perry making the most of his first collegiate start.
And I really like him in the style of play that we've grown accustomed to watching Louisville. I believe Darius Perry fits that extremely well. You see his ability to guard in the full court, but he's also a shot maker and a tough young man that can take the basketball to the rim, finding him opportunities for himself or his teammates. I think he fits exactly what Coach Padgett needs in the starting lineup.
He's another one of the Cardinals shooting less than 30% from three-point range this year, but based on his free throw shooting and the stroke that you see, you know he's got a good shot.
Well, and that's coming off the bench. And, you know, I can tell you as well as anyone, it's a completely different world when you're a starter compared to coming off the bench, especially when you've been a starter all your life, as Darius Perry has. And now when he has the opportunity to be out there at the beginning of the game and getting a rhythm, you see him knocking down the three-pointer from the wing. But it makes a big difference. I was a guy, you know, throughout my entire career, I never came off the bench until I got to the NBA, but that was a different world for me. I was a much better player when I started the game compared to when I had to come in as a substitute.
Bob Hill should have started you right from the start.
I agree.
I don't understand what's going on.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Jordan Nwora with his third three-pointer, give him 9 on the night.
And shooting the basketball has been a strength for Louisville here on their home court. And one of the main reasons why they've had this separation and been able to affect Georgia Tech in their zone. And Josh Patchett's going to have to think about how he wants to guard Louisville in the second half.
Nwora comes up with the block shot. Near turnover. Snyder's got it for Louisville. Pick and pop. Mahmoud. Handoff. Fumbled by Perry. Crosses over Okogie, and the young man's feeling it.
He really is. And again, you can see the confidence growing with Darius Perry, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're not looking over your shoulder thinking that you're coming out.
First foul on Perry, and the 5th against Louisville here in the first half.
Now, I don't know if Perry knew that or not, but without Georgia Tech being in the bonus, that really doesn't affect them. But I believe David Padgett likes his energy and aggressiveness on that play because you have an opportunity there to try to force another turnover, especially here at the end of the half.
2 seconds to go in the half. Okogie rises up. And that's kind of emblematic of how the entire first half went for the Yellow Jackets.
And you look at the bench points, 17-0 for Louisville, showing off their depth. A big difference compared to Georgia Tech, who only goes about 6 deep.
34-16 our score. Let's send you to Adnan Burke in the studio. Welcome back to Rivalry Week, presented by Wendy's. From the KFC Young Center here in Louisville, Kentucky, it's been all Cardinals over Georgia Tech. With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman, and it's been a completely dominant performance for Louisville. And as we showed you going to break, to start the half, bench scoring 17-0, all Cardinals.
It really was. And the bench players came in doing a great job on the defensive end of the floor. Ryan McMahon continuing to play very good basketball, especially on the defensive end, showing off his shot blocking ability. And, of course, his shot making ability has been huge, along with Jordan Nwora, who made 3 three-pointers in the first half, getting part of that 17 bench points. And Georgia Tech has been the opposite. Even when they've gotten good looks, they've been unable to take advantage of them on the fast break. Josh Okogie, who normally turns that into 2, unable to finish, and it's often become points on the other end of the floor for Louisville.
Just anemic. You see the 16 points, fewest in any half this season for the Yellow Jackets, who shot only 6 of 26, 23%. Louisville starts the second half with the basketball, and once again, same starting 5 for the Ville. Darius Perry getting his first ever collegiate start in there with Dangadell sitting out with an ankle injury. Nice running drive by Anis Mahmoud.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see Mahmoud turn that over. I honestly believe he can dunk that. I mean, because he's about a foot over the rim. From here, my depth perception might not be great, so he may be further away than it looks, but I would love to see him just turn that over and finish it even stronger.
A.D. Gay with the layup. First 2 points for the redshirt junior from Senegal.
You know, and one of the areas where Georgia Tech has had success recently is getting the ball to Gay early in the games in the post and allow him to be able to operate. So maybe that's something Josh Pastner talked with his team about at halftime, was give Gay an opportunity to be able to operate in the post. And they go back to him for a second time.
He did a nice job to gather, but then, you know, you beat the first defender, and there is Anas Mahmoud waiting for you. It is a daunting task to score on the low post against this Louisville defense.
It really is. And, you know, you're talking about the second best shot blocking team in the country. Mahmoud, one of the best at over 3 a game. And just covers so much ground with that size, length, and, of course, that wingspan, disrupting so many shots against the opponents.
Meanwhile, Ben Lammers has gone to the Georgia Tech bench, and it has been a silent night for the senior out of San Antonio. Still has not scored, and this for a man who comes in having scored in his career 9,950 points.
And you know that's something going on there, because Ben Lammers rarely ever comes out of a basketball game. He gets about a minute and a half of rest per game in ACC play, so it looks as though the trainers are checking on his left leg. But Lammers is up, going to actually head back into the tunnel, but looks as though he's running pretty well. So hopefully we see him back in the game. Josh Pastner, not much depth with this team, so can ill afford to have a loss, especially a loss like Ben Lammers, his all-ACC defensive player from a year ago.
He played 19 minutes in that first half, did not score. He didn't go back to the locker room, just stayed in the tunnel area doing some drills with the trainer to see how he's doing. Alvarado and Alston in the backcourt for Tech, along with Okogie. Here's Gay at the high post, and Todrick Jackson has come in off the bench. He's still looking for his first points tonight. He'll try for 3. And he rattles it home.
And that's a big bucket for Georgia Tech and for Todrick Jackson. Jackson needing a little bit of confidence from beyond the arc. 10 points against Boston College, has actually scored in double figures in his last 2 games, but he's that guy that Georgia Tech normally has been able to rely upon when they've had good scoring games. It's happened because Todrick Jackson has gotten involved. He's their only bench production, so they need for him to be successful on the court, a double-figure score on average.
Yeah, even though he's not by percentage a very good three-point shooter, he did in that Boston College game hit a couple of key threes late to help get it to overtime. And he really picked apart that Syracuse zone from the baseline a couple of games ago, where 4 straight possessions, it seemed like, the defense broke down, and he's only 6'1", 6'2", but he's able to manufacture points inside.
Yeah, he does a great job of finishing through contact and over much larger players. And Jackson now a 1,000-point scorer for Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech actually has a chance by the end of this season to have 3 1,000-point scorers on their roster. Ben Lammers not far away. Josh Okogie a little further away, but he averages 18 points per game, so he can definitely get there by the time the season ends.
And Lammers is back in. Again, Mahmoud chooses not to dunk that basketball. Just throws it up. And Lammers seems to be moving well. Okogie for 3.
You know, we talked about in the first half how Louisville did not separate it. Tom Crean mentioned it in the studio. Louisville should have been up much more than they were, and now they're allowing Georgia Tech to stick around, and just like that, 2 back-to-back threes from Georgia Tech have made this a 13-point game.
2 7-footers and 2 guys named Edwards have been a pretty good formula for the Boilermakers. Vincent Edwards leading the way at 15.3 per game, and Miles Bridges turned down the opportunity to potentially be a lottery pick last year to come back and play in games like this one.
And Michigan State escaping the upset at Iowa earlier this week. Iowa played them very well down to the end, but Michigan State coming up with a big road win and an opportunity to move up in the polls that we've seen 3 top 10 teams go down yesterday. So now a chance for Michigan State to move up to possibly number 2 if Virginia's able to take care of their business at home against Virginia Tech on Saturday.
Bad pass. Steal by V.J. King. Spalding looks like was fouled by A.D. Gay. I'll ask you the same thing about Villanova that I did in the first half about Purdue. With them having lost a game, do you feel any differently about them right now than you did a couple of days ago?
Well, you know, honestly, I do with Villanova only because of the Phil Booth injury. And without Phil Booth, I think their depth is definitely down. But Villanova is a team that normally goes out and handles their business, and not that St. John's hadn't been playing well against that upset. Since that upset against Duke, is Josh Okogie's able to get out and finish on the break, and an opportunity to make this a 10-point game now. And David Padgett going with somewhat wholesale substitutions, not liking the defensive effort that he's seeing from his team. Todrick Jackson with the kick ahead to Alvarado, who finds Josh Okogie, who's the better finisher there. Smart play by Alvarado. And Okogie getting to the free throw line now, making this a 10-point game. And Georgia Tech has come out with the more energy here in the second half and found themselves back in it. And Coach Padgett not liking what he's seeing from his team, especially on the defensive end of the floor to start this half.
It's an 11-1 run by the Yellow Jackets, who are perfect from the floor this half, and it's another empty trip for Louisville. Coach Padgett's already burned a frustration timeout here in the second half and has gone back to the bench, which played so well in that first half. Alvarado misfired. McMahon fights for the rebound, and he's got it.
And Alvarado had Gay on the block right there with his man on his back. That's one you got to give to the big fella, because when you don't give him those opportunities, oftentimes it hurts you on one end of the floor, and this time it hurts him on both ends as Noir is able to come back and knock down the three.
Noira's career high is 18 points against Southern Illinois way back in November. Well on pace to eclipse that here tonight with 12. Tough entry pass. Okogie continues to pile up the points.
And that's one of the areas that Josh Pastner will run both Okogie and Todrick Jackson, two of his guards, into the post, and they oftentimes are able to overmatch guys, you know, their size or even bigger in the post and come away with the bucket.
Okogie's got 17, again more than half of the points for the Yellow Jackets, and that call's going to go against Wara. Foul against the Cardinals as we head to break.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network, and Carl's Jr. and Hardy. We packed our signature Big Burger flavor you love into our new charbroiled slider.
With Corey Alexander, I'm Doug Sherman in Louisville, Kentucky, where Jordan Wara and the Cardinals, led by their bench, continue to push back on the Yellow Jackets.
And Wara coming up with the steal there. The pressure for Louisville out of the timeout. And Wara playing very well on the defensive end of the floor as well as McMahon. Both these guys giving David Padgett a lift off the bench just as much defensively as they have offensively. And it's a welcome addition to this team. Wara already with 4 3-pointers in this game. He's only made 10 in ACC play. So a good shooting night for him and a needed shooting night for the Cards.
His father, Eric Wara, was a very good basketball player at tiny Damon College in Buffalo, New York. Okogie misses another point-blank shot. And his dad is now a longtime coach at Erie Community College out there in western New York. His son is having a fine performance tonight. Okogie. Offensive foul. Let's go to Adnan.
All right, guys, Duke and North Carolina on ESPN. Right now the Blue Devils have the slim lead, but it should be a good one. Of course, when these two teams hook up, very close games. Each team has won 50 of the last 100 games. Once again on ESPN. Doug, Corey, back to you guys.
All right, thank you. Josh Okogie just picked up his third personal foul. And that could be a huge storyline as the Yellow Jackets try to get back in this ball game. Anis Mahmoud has been very comfortable patrolling the paint on both ends tonight.
And Mahmoud's not a guy that's going to play with his back to the basket. He doesn't do his damage that way. He's more of a face-up guy, but does a great job putting the ball on the floor and using that length to score over top of defenders. And David Padgett, as well as the whole crowd here, wanting a backcourt. The officials feeling as though that was something that the ball was deflected. Actually, Josh Okogie lost that basketball. It was right in front of us. So Georgia Tech getting a break, but Louisville still can turn it into points on the opposite end of the floor.
McMahon turns it over. Okogie has it poked away out of bounds. Georgia Tech will keep.
Okogie handling the basketball and just loses it between his legs, but with McMahon doing such a great job deflecting everything today, the officials thought that McMahon got to handle that basketball. So I can understand that one.
Naturally. 3 steals and a block shot in the first half for McMahon, defending now on Alvarado. Alvarado's pass deflected out. That's been a staple of Louisville basketball for many years. They were one of the first programs, if not the first, to track the deflection.
And that is a disrupting thing. When you want to run your offense, but you've always got guys in passing lanes just knocking your passes off regardless of what it may be. As we had another look at Okogie, but that, if McMahon touched anything, it may have been his leg, but Okogie continues to go to work. A big jumper there along the baseline. And Josh Okogie is playing very well offensively. He's going to need some help from his friends in this game if his team wants to be able to get back into it. But you can't fault this young man's effort because he's gotten it done.
Georgia Tech has 4 guys coming in who average double figures, but Jose Alvarado scored just 3 tonight. Todrick Jackson has just 3. And Ben Lammers is still scoreless.
Yeah, Josh Okogie, 19 points for him. And he's actually shooting 50% from the field, but you see the rest of the team under 20% when you look at 25% when you look at what they've been able to do. So it's been a struggle for everyone else. And Josh Okogie, you asked me before the game who was going to be the best player on the floor tonight. I said I thought it would be Okogie. And I just got distracted because Todrick Jackson, who I love dearly, just shot an air ball at the free throw line. And I can't let that go and not say anything about it. I don't even remember my thought. You know, that's what happens when people shoot air balls at the free throw. It just throws me off of everything that I was talking about before. Todd's got to make up for that one.
Did you ever throw an air ball from the free throw line?
I have done a lot of embarrassing things on the basketball court, but that was not one of them.
Snyder's having a nice game for Louisville. He had 7 assists in the first half. Here goes the senior from right here in Louisville. And there's a foul called against Todrick Jackson. Well, Todrick's younger brother, Tyree, is redshirt freshman guard for Buzz Williams at Virginia Tech. And here he gets called for the foul from behind.
There was a lot of basketball in that play as well. Snyder sold it well. He sold that one well. Todrick Jackson still smiling. Conversation with Les Jones about it. You know, and that's what I love about the ACC and the officials that we have in this league. And dating back to when I was playing, it was a good time to be able to have relationships with officials that you could talk to them during the game, this, that, and other. Oftentimes, players, coaches overreact. Officials at times overreact. But when you can talk about it and have a conversation and forge those relationships and say, oh, you missed one on that one, you owe me one. And officials at times will say, you're right, Corey, I got you. And, you know, but I think that's what's often lost in the fact that everything is replayed now, everything is reviewed now. So the officials who are being graded, they can't make up those calls. You know, I mean, and honestly, in my opinion, not to say that it's the right or wrong thing, but it takes away from the game and those relationships that players and coaches are allowed to have with officials because they're under such scrutiny with their grading, you know, scale as well.
And it's interesting that we have Teddy Valentine working this game as you talk about the byplay between player and official. And, of course, he was part of what was a 24-hour news cycle story when he turned his back on the North Carolina senior point guard.
Yeah, and again, and I'm not saying that Teddy was right or that Teddy was wrong in doing so, but I know if I was the player, I probably would have laughed at it and had a conversation regarding it. And, you know, when that happened, but you know, everything today, of course, is such, you know, the worst thing that ever happened to the world at the time that it happens, and I get it, it's news, but yet it does take away from the ability to build relationships with the officials.
Nice looking set for Louisville to get the clean corner. Shot by Dwayne Sutton.
Louisville continues to shoot the basketball extremely well from the perimeter. And that has been the separating factor thus far in this game. Georgia Tech made it a 10-point game. Josh Okogie was able to get rolling, but no help from his friends has allowed Louisville to stretch this back out to a 15-point game.
Louisville shooting the lights out. In control tonight over the Yellow Jackets. The Louisville Cardinals with a 15-point lead over the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Part of Rivalry Week presented by Wendy's. And some news from tonight we want to pass along. A woman has filed a suit against Georgia Tech basketball coach Josh Pastner, alleging that he sexually assaulted her. The suit was in response to one filed last month by Pastner accusing the woman and her boyfriend of defamation. Jennifer Pendley alleges that Pastner assaulted her in a Houston hotel room in 2016. Pastner's attorney denied the allegation and said Pendley only made the charges after a scheme to extort money from Pastner failed. You can go to ESPN.com for more on this story. His Yellow Jackets scored just 16 points in the first half here tonight. They've already scored 16, now 17 points and 18 in the second half.
Well, those 16 points were their fewest points in a half by Georgia Tech this season. But adjustments at halftime by Josh Pastner has allowed them to come back out and be much more successful in the offensive end of the floor and made this a 10-point game, but has allowed Louisville to be able to operate now on their offensive end. We've seen Mahmoud in the same spot as Spalding there score a number of times here in this second half, and then Spalding with that post up and face up on the block. Now opportunity to add back to this lead for Louisville.
Second foul on Lammers, fifth on the Yellow Jackets. And Ray Spalding again tonight has looked really good, Corey. You know, he came off the bench for the only time in the game Monday against Syracuse with 18 points and 9 rebounds. Back in the starting lineup tonight. And the junior from Trinity High School here in Louisville's looked very good. You know, and he's another one of the Louisville products that has really had a very good career here. He and Snyder both. And I didn't get a chance to mention Quentin Snyder with those 2 free throws passing ex-Card and current Kentucky assistant coach Kenny Payne on the all-time scoring list for Louisville. I cannot believe Darius Perry got that pass through, and I cannot believe Ray Spalding actually caught that and was able to finish it. That was a very high-risk, very high-reward play for the Cards on the break. Gutsy pass, and the 6'10", 225-pounder catches it in stride and banks it in to give him 11 points.
You know, but that's one of the areas where Louisville really has had a lot of success with hometown players coming here to the U of L and having great careers. Of course, none greater than Darrell Griffin, Dr. Dunkenstein, who's all-time leading scorer.
Well, McMahon is a Floridian, but he has become an adopted son here tonight.
It wasn't long ago we were looking at a 10-point game, but the Cards have gotten out in transition. Ryan McMahon continues to play well, and that normally means shooting well, as now Louisville has made it a 20-point game.
Coming up on SportsCenter with SVP after college basketball, everything you need to know about the Cavs trade deadline shakeup. Are they better? Does this entice LeBron to stay in Cleveland? And why D-Wade was shipped out. Plus SVP on the 49ers decision to make Jimmy Garoppolo the league's highest paid player after just 7 career starts. And when one of the worst losses of the season turns into one of the best bad beats of the year. That's all coming up midnight. SportsCenter on ESPN. You know, you were mentioning all the Louisville guys. There are 3 of them on this current U of L roster. And then talking to Quentin Snyder earlier this year, he actually had a little bit of a problem when Ray Spalding joined the roster because they were true, legitimate high school rivals. Spalding at Trinity back in March of 2014. Spalding led the Trinity Shamrocks to an upset of Quentin Snyder's Ballad Bruins for the 7th Region Championship. And so, you know, you think these guys don't care about it, so now they're teammates at Louisville. And Snyder very candidly told me, I had a hard time warming up to him as now my teammate.
Well, and that probably means, and I don't know this for certain, that probably means Ray Spalding won too many games against Snyder in high school. That's the only reason, because I'm sure Snyder and whoever is normally winning those games doesn't have much of a problem warming up to the other guy, but it's the one that lost those games. So we probably should have asked who had the better record against each other. That normally would tell you who was the guy that had warmed up to the other the best.
Well, they weren't in the same league. Snyder was at Ballard. That's the big public high school program in the area. And Spalding played for the private school, Trinity.
Well, I tell you this, though. None of those guys, and they were good players, none of those guys were the best guy to come out of Ballard. But do you know who the best guy to come out of Ballard would be?
Would that be?
He did not attend.
Did he go to Tennessee?
He did go to Tennessee.
Allen Houston.
That would be Allen Houston again. And I'm sure there may be people out there that would debate that. But as far as I know, and I've got my fair knowledge of Louisville Ballard, I don't think there's anybody that's come out of there better than Allen Houston, because Allen Houston was pretty good.
Dwan Wheat?
Good. Not Allen Houston.
Not Allen Houston.
Unless they said Darrell Griffith went there. Now, if Darrell Griffith went there, then you would be able to say, but right. I don't think he went to Ballard.
No, he did not. Yes, Snyder scored over 2,400 points in his career at Ballard. Actually played his 8th grade year varsity at Fern Creek before transferring to Ballard, and immediately started as a freshman. And here he is now 8 years later playing for his hometown team. He grew up going to Freedom Hall games and watching the Cards and dreaming of someday wearing a Louisville uniform.
Yeah, speaking of Freedom Hall, I told you I had the opportunity to coach the Kentucky Derby Festival basketball game this past April. And, of course, I learned so much about the Kentucky Derby and recognizing there are actually 72 events that take place over about a month span of time. And, of course, the Derby being the grand finale of them all. But it's not just a horse race. It's much more than that. And it is a true event that this city takes a tremendous amount of pride in putting on every year.
Yeah, I had no idea. As Alvarado gets the bucket, foul on Spalding, his second.
And that play actually would not have been a foul on Spalding had he not tried to swing through to block that shot. Had he stayed vertical, the basket still, of course, would have counted for Alvarado, but he wouldn't have had an opportunity for the free throw.
Yeah, Freedom Hall was, of course, the home of the Louisville Cardinals up until 8 years ago when this beautiful building was built in downtown Louisville right along the Ohio River. McMahon. And there is Spalding once again. Couldn't pull it in, though.
And one of the best offensive rebounders in the country is Spalding. That one thought he had another opportunity, but Gay wrestling it away right at the end of the possession.
Katie Gay with the step through, and it's another missed layup for Georgia Tech.
And nice move by Gay. As we like to say in the pickup game, $1 million move, but 10-cent shot. Gay doing a great job getting the shot blocker Spalding into the air, but yet unable to finish the easy layup on that possession. And it definitely goes off of Gay. But Georgia Tech rewarded the basketball back.
Gay. Give him two. That's a goaltending call against Ray Spalding. You remember the old Metro Conference?
I do remember the Metro Conference, and my knowledge of the Metro Conference, of course, as Louisville was playing in it, that is the conference that Del Curry played in when he was at Virginia Tech. So yep. I followed the Metro Conference a lot. At that time in the early 80s, believe it or not, I was, well, I shouldn't say, I have to say probably the mid-80s, because I was a Virginia fan from 79 to 83 while Ralph Sampson was there. When Ralph left, then I was a Del Curry fan at Virginia Tech, so I do remember the Metro very well at that time.
Well, the reason I ask you is back in 1975 when that old conference came to being, these two schools were among the 6 charter members. Georgia Tech only stayed in the Metro for 3 years. But you had Memphis State with Baskerville Holmes that I remember. That was a little later than 75, 76.
Yeah, that's when it was Memphis State and not Memphis.
Yes, yes. And St. Louis and Tulane, along with Cincinnati, were the 6 charter members.
I was 2 then, so that goes beyond my scope of knowledge. But I do know right now, Louisville is rolling.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Wendy's Hamburgers, made with fresh, never frozen beef.
Adnan and Burke back in our college basketball studios. Clemson all over Pitt, 66-41, as Gabe DeVoe is leading the way with 25 points. Duke in North Carolina is on ESPN. Gary Trent Jr. here wide open for three. This is part of a 13-2 run for Duke. Currently, they're up by 12 now with 6.5 left to go. And when that game was over, yeah, Bill Walton with a skeleton. UCLA at Arizona. Always must-see TV. Doug, Corey?
Thank you. Back here in Louisville, 57-39 with Sutton at the line. You know, Louisville in the preseason was ranked 16th nationally by the Associated Press and were picked 5th in the ACC. And as you see in the top 12, they are still right around middling with Georgia Tech a couple of games back. Yellow Jackets got off to a terrific start to conference play back in early January, but they've fallen off. And at least tonight, it looks like Louisville has righted the ship. And
what really hurt Georgia Tech during that stretch was turnovers. They actually went through a stretch, a 3-game losing streak after that 3-1 start where they had 49 turnovers in 3 games. And when you look at today's game, 17 turnovers already in this one. And that really has been huge as far as affecting them. And then they're only shooting 33% from the field until Josh Okogie was able to knock down that last bucket. When you couple those two things together, that makes it extremely difficult to win, especially on the road in the ACC. Yeah, the last couple of days in practice as Williams hits the three. All the focus for the Cardinals has been on the defensive end, and I would say it's translated from the practice floor to the game floor. Well, and what David Padgett told us was the way that they've always done things here at Louisville is worry about the defense. Offense will take care of itself, and by worrying about the defense, their offense has come out and provided 10 3-pointers for them here on this evening. So when you think about it, the philosophy is working for Coach Padgett. Just focus on the defensive end of the floor and allow offense to take care of its own. And the struggle continues for Ben Lammers, still scoreless for the ball game. 6:45 remaining in regulation. Alvarado bounces it to Todrick Jackson. Mahmoud got a hand on that pass. And the Cardinals come away with it. King fouled on his way up. Three-point shooting has been spectacular for Louisville tonight. Jordan Moore with 4. Sutton knocking down the 3 ball from the corner pocket. McMahon has been tremendous on both ends of the floor. Put 2 3-pointers on his tab. And Malik Williams also with a couple of threes. And you look at the numbers, 10 for 18 from Louisville, who average over 8 3-point field goals made per game in their wins, but just above 5 in their losses. And this one, they have a very good chance of being able to walk away with the win. And the 3-pointer has been a tremendous weapon for David Padgett's team here tonight. Can a team change its stripes? I mean, they are only shooting 35% from beyond the arc this year. Can they become a good and much more efficient 3-point team at this point in the year? I think they can become more efficient. I don't know if they're just going to be a good 3-point shooting team all of a sudden. But, you know, one of the things that Coach Padgett talked to us about before the game was recognizing the difference between a good shot for your team or the first available shot for you. And I think that's going to be the key for this team to recognize, is to make sure they get the best shot for the team and not just shoot it when they're open, but get the best shot for the team on every possession down the floor. Oftentimes that will be a 3-pointer, but it's normally something created by one of your teammates. And Malik Williams, who picks up his second foul, is the person we were specifically talking about at that point with Coach Padgett. And he said that Malik is starting to get it, that, you know, he grew up, as most of these players did, just shooting the basketball whenever they wanted to. But at this level, he needs to better recognize, well, I may have the ball and I may be open, but you need to work the basketball as well. Yeah, but coming into the game, Malik had actually taken, 49 of his 90 field goal attempts from beyond the 3-point arc, and he was shooting 26.5%. But has shot the ball well today. And a lot of it has to do with the difference in the shots that he is taking. And Coach Padgett said that oftentimes off of an initial screen and roll, if Malik found himself open at the top of the key, he was shooting that basketball, and it wasn't always the best shot for the team. If the ball was reversed and he was able to get it back and get a good look, that was the one that you take. And that's the way I want to see Mahmoud finish around the rim. No finger roll, no layup. None of that on that possession, finishing off the alley-oop with 2 hands.
10 points for the senior from Egypt. 64-42 Louisville. Georgia Tech has never led in this ball game. It was tied 2-2, and that's been it. Little give and go, and another block shot by Mahmoud. In any language, that is a rejection for big number 14.
And the big fella speaks 4 different languages, and oddly enough knows how to talk trash in all 4 of those languages once he blocks your shot.
Well, wouldn't you, if you could speak 4 languages?
Absolutely. But I would have my language would have to be something offensive, because again, I'm not really bragging about my defensive game.
No.
But I would talk to you about how I got a bucket on you in 4 different languages if I could speak 4 different languages.
As well you should. Quentin Snyder draws the foul.
First time foul at number 3, Evan Cole. His first. Teams in the double bonus.
McMahon continues to play very well. Nice left-hand pass to Mahmoud for the alley-oop on that possession.
Yeah, McMahon's real comfortable making passes like that. If you watch practice, he makes passes of that nature off the bounce one-handed all the time.
Replaces number 1, Tommy Jackson.
He's been really a spark off the bench for David Padgett's team here today, and more of it has had to do with his defense. He got it started defensively, coming up with deflections and steals and even block shots. And of course, you know, as Coach Padgett said, the offense would take care of itself. Found himself in rhythm for a number of open 3-pointers, has been able to knock them down.
Josh Pastner going a little deeper into his bench now with Moses Wright, a 6'9" freshman from Raleigh, into the game for the first time. You know, we talked in the first half about the former Cardinal Donovan Mitchell, who could win the NBA Rookie of the Year this season for the Utah Jazz, averaging over 19 per game. Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum of the Celtics would be in that conversation. Dennis Smith Jr. as Alvarado buries the 3, but I don't know that people here in Louisville, huge Cardinal fans, even saw that coming from Donovan Mitchell this year.
I might disagree.
Really?
I believe if there was one place where people saw it, I saw it. You know, and you know, when you look back at the history of Rick Pitino programs and what he's been able to do with players and turn them into great NBA players, I saw a lot of it, and that progression came a season ago where Donovan Mitchell was an all-ACC performer, and in my opinion was in the conversation for ACC Player of the Year. I thought he had that good of a year ago.
Alvarado goes end to end.
But of course, it's easy for me to say I saw that now.
Then why didn't he go higher in the draft?
Well, 13's pretty high.
But he's outperformed a lot of the guys who were taken ahead of him.
Well, that's very true. But if you look, for example, at a Jason Tatum doesn't get the opportunities that Donovan Mitchell gets. If he had those type of opportunities and went to a team that wasn't as good, you know, where Donovan Mitchell is actually going to a team that needed him. Jason Tatum goes to Boston, where he's the 5th option most likely on that team and is playing very well. Donovan Mitchell found a great situation in Utah where they needed a 2-guard to be able to come in and play alongside Ricky Rubio, a pass-first point guard, and Mitchell has taken advantage of that opportunity.
Big night continues for Okogie.
And Joshua Okogie's taking advantage of his opportunities, especially beyond the 3-point arc. He shot the ball extremely well. But it's not about Georgia Tech shooting, it's about Louisville's play on both ends of the floor tonight.
Adnan Burke once again here in our college basketball studios, reminding you we got more college hoops right here on ESPN2 as Shake Milton, you see, out tonight averaging 18 points per game. You see the numbers. That game is coming up next. And also Duke, North Carolina right now on ESPN. It's almost the half. Blue Devils right now are up by 6 in a highly entertaining game. You'd like to flip over or stick with us? Louisville, Virginia continues. Back to Doug and Corey. Gentlemen.
Well, and then here's another Sonic blockbuster coming up. Purdue, Michigan State, part of the Saturday showcase. Saturday, 4 o'clock Eastern, Boilermakers and the Spartans. Boy, that young man has barely missed anything tonight. Jordan Warren now with 15 points, 3 off his career high. Malik Williams has had his career high coming off the bench for Louisville. Cardinals have been looking good throughout the entire roster. Cole strong to the rim.
Nice take there by Cole. And this is an opportunity right now for Josh Pastner to get some of his reserves, some minutes, some meaningful minutes that can help them moving forward. Ben Lammer's out of the game early, icing his knee, and that's not something we've seen often from him, is sitting down. So, you know, and this Georgia Tech team has a big game at home on Sunday versus Duke. So maybe Josh Pastner finding something here with a couple of his reserve guys to where he maybe can stretch that rotation a little bit as the season goes along.
Off the turnover, Evan Cole gets another layup. 4 points for the freshman from Cumming, Georgia.
And that's a confidence builder for Cole. Just to be able to get out onto the court in game action and put some points on the board can often build some momentum for you, especially as the season wears on. And it's a grind in the ACC, having to play 18 regular season games. You know, so Josh Pastner hopefully being able to find a little bit of light here at the end of the tunnel in this game. It hasn't gone the way Georgia Tech would like for it to have gone, but yet maybe he can get something going here at the end that helps them moving forward.
Well, you know, we talked about Donovan Mitchell, the former Louisville Cardinal, maybe being the NBA Rookie of the Year this year. In 1996, I want to know why my partner, Corey Alexander, was not given more consideration for that award. It went to Damon Stoudemire, but #1 for the Spurs was getting things done.
Well, let me tell you why. Because just like I said, Damon Stoudemire got the opportunity. He had the chance to take the shots. But this surprise package right there, I love it. The only thing, it makes me feel bad because I used to look like that.
You still look like that.
No, I don't look like that when I see myself in the mirror anymore. I like that surprise package.
In 9.3 minutes per game as an NBA rookie, you average 2 assists per game, couple of points per game.
Only a couple points?
You're 2.3.
Really?
But you only got 9 minutes a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Shot 39% from the arc. I want to know what happened at the free throw line. Only 64% as an NBA rookie.
I didn't get there much. One thing for certain, I didn't get there much. And when you don't get there much, when you miss, it's big. I'll tell you what, that takes me back. It actually hurts now just to watch myself jump.
When you made your NBA debut at McNichols Arena in Denver back in November of '95, what's your most vivid memory?
Most vivid memory was the fact that I did not play in our opener. The game before at home against Dallas in San Antonio, I didn't take my warm-up off. Never been in that situation before. It was like culture shock to me. Game ends, we go straight to the airport, jump on our charter flight, go to Denver, play a back-to-back, and I had an opportunity to play against Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who was formerly Chris Jackson, who was a hero of mine in that first game, and scored my first NBA points against him. And you know, preseason is one thing, but when you get to play in regular season games, that's really when the dream comes true. So I do remember that game, and we lost that first game I didn't play, and we won that game. So I was 1-0 in the year. The rest of my team actually had a loss, but I was 1-0.
Did you point that out to Bob Hill, the coach?
I should now. I should definitely point that out to him now, that he should have been playing me more.
As we were looking at that roster, I mean, you got to play that year with Doc Rivers, Avery Johnson, Sean Elliott, Monty Williams, the Admiral, David Robinson. What a great way to start your pro career.
And don't forget Chuck Person and Dell Demps. Dell Demps now the general manager of the New Orleans Pelicans. So most of the guys that I coached with at that point have gone into coaching. Vinny Del Negro, I mean, you know, most of those guys have had very good coaching careers. And here I am talking for a living. Isn't that something?
Not a bad way to go. Joe Griffin and Jacob Redding, a couple of walk-ons, have gotten into the game for Louisville. Lance Thomas is also out there. He's #1 in white. And with the shot clock turned off, the Cardinals will get it back. Well, Louisville's 3-game losing streak will soon become a memory. But where does Louisville go from here? Can they build on this and put together a string of wins?
Well, I believe so. And again, I think that David Padgett found something with his zone today. He said they haven't done much of it, but they needed to get it back into their rotation. They were able to do that and do it with success against Georgia Tech. I think that's going to have to remain as the season goes along.
77-54 the final. Louisville improves to 7-5 in the ACC, 17-8 overall, and the losing streak is over. Georgia Tech drops to 4-7 in league play. Our final score, 77-54 Louisville. Up next, American Athletic Conference Hoops. SMU and Houston. First, let's send you to Adnan in the studio.